computer. Share my screen. Share. Desktop. Okay. Well, I've got my SSH working on all my servers this time. And I've done the just installed Omnibus from Nightly on all of them. The other thing I learned the other day was that we don't have nightly builds for Debian. I went through this whole process and realized we only have them for Ubuntu. But I think I can follow the docs now. So this is from the merge request that I'm working on with docs fixes. There's some lint errors which I need to fix before this can be merged. This is an updated diagram trying to explain where we're headed. So if you want to review, like it sort of matches the styling of the main HA one, but trying to highlight the different components a bit more clearly than the current diagram, but we can iterate on that. All right, preparation. I have one prefect. Oh no, this is before we begin. Yes, I've got a working GitLab instance. I've done configure. I've provisioned an SQL server. I have one Prefect node and 3 Gitaly nodes. I have the IP addresses of all of them. These are the secrets that we're going to be creating. I'm just going to use the default. All right, first step is Postgres. Don't reuse the application Prefect, okay. I will need the Prefect node and the Postgres node. Okay, so I changed this in the documentation because previously we had this sort of like weird requirement. It was like, make sure that you have a server or like a computer with the PSQL tool installed, and it was sort of like a dead end. But I think we should just instruct users to like SSH into a box that Omnibus has already installed PSQL on, because then we don't need to like have people to install local dependencies as part of this process to create the user. So I said, I changed this to read basically SSH into the Prefect node. So I've done that. So this one down here is the Prefect node. Root. Okay, connect. All right. Also, I made the server address the last argument, so it's easier to copy and paste, because otherwise you're always like arrowing back to the first argument. All right, SQL.
You're so efficient. Love that.
This isn't my first rodeo. We did all this like with Geo, so going through the docs was just like, oh, I remember all the things that we like, it took us like weeks and weeks and weeks to fine tune. And so that's why it's going faster. Yeah. All right. Password, okay. The password is very securely Prefect SQL password. For anyone watching on YouTube, this node will be deleted before you see it. All right. Template 1. I found this confusing because I don't know that template 1 is a magic table that apparently, or database that always exists. But apparently this is a trick, so this succeeds. I think we should probably add some explanatory note, like what is going on here, because otherwise it's just sort of magic, and like, why is template 1 a thing? It's a bit confusing.
Everyone
right.
knows template 1.
Well, this guy didn't.
I'm just kidding. No, and it's a trick. It's a...
Yeah, there's all these different magic tricks that, I don't know, it's nice to learn what magic is going on when you're reading docs. All right, we've got to create the user. I did notice that this is kind of a different process to the Geo docs. Like they connect in and then run like a slightly different command for creating the user and then creating the database and doing some alter thing. So I don't know enough about strengths and weaknesses of the approach we use versus the approach Geo is using, but it's interesting that the docs have different methodologies for essentially creating the user and creating the database. So it might be worth standardizing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see what you're doing here. So you're giving create permissions. You may not want to have Prefect to have create database permissions, so you could argue that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's why Geo probably doesn't do that, because they probably assume a super user is creating the database, and then Prefect gets to deal with just adding tables and such, but not like creating some random database.
Yeah, because I think you probably generally would want to have as few accounts as possible with create permissions.
Create and drop, right?
Exactly. So I can probably just update this to match the Geo docs. And we can try that out next time. But for now, I'm going to follow the instructions. Okay. This is another like nitpick. I don't know that I like the /q, like copying and pasting, like running and then immediately quitting. Like I feel like either we should explain how to exit or like ask them to do that, because it's a little weird to like start a process and then like execute a command and suddenly it exits. Like I don't know if it still exits if the first command fails, but it feels a little strange to me. Anyway, reconnect. Okay. All right, we're in. Oh, well, we'll be in with this dodgy password. All right. Oh, so we're back into template 1, and now we're creating a new database. Okay, all right. So I think that section is done. Can someone make a note that there's no sort of like conclusion summary note sort of saying like you've now configured the database, just sort of ends. Prefect, next section. To complete this section, you will need configured Postgres server. Yes, we just did that. We need to know the server address and the password. Okay. So we're still on the prefect node from the last step. Still is root. So one thing I also did was break up the docs that I went through last week when I did the recording by myself. It was just this huge wall of config for GitLab RB. It was like copy and paste this and update 5 locations. And then you had to read all the comments in the blocks, like above and below different chunks. And I found that kind of hard to read and like work out what was going on. So I broke this up into like multiple steps, which are like, they're all adding config to the GitLab RB, but it's like clearer sort of explanatory, like we're making this change to do this, then we're making another change to the same file to do this other thing. Happy to hear feedback if people think that's a bad change. All right, so we're disabling everything and enabling on the prefect. All right, I also discovered that set paste like fixes all my paste problems. Because I was having so many paste problems. All right, that's that. Configure prefect to listen on network interfaces by editing. All right. Configure a strong token for prefect by editing. This will be needed by clients outside the cluster, like GitLab shell, to communicate with prefect. This is a very, very strong token. It's long. Configure Prefect to connect to the Postgres database. You'll need to replace that with our address with the address and password to password. Okay. I do like the fact that in the docs, we weren't surrounding things that needed to be replaced with curlies. And so everything is a word in Vim. So you can just change the word. So you don't need to know all the advanced word motions if you're using Vim to replace these placeholders. So I don't know if anyone actually thought of that when they were doing it, but I enjoyed it. All right, if you do not want to use SSL, disable this. I think this comment is wrong. I think, oh, okay, no, that comment is right. It's just confusing that it's like uncomment this line if you want to disable something. Also, like, why would you not want to use SSL for your database? I mean, we probably need to document it somewhere, but yeah. It's maybe it should just be like, that should be like a PS at the bottom for like people who are cowboys. And then we spend more time documenting the SSL, like how to use more advanced SSL configurations, which are more likely to be how to do it. Or we could have a section at the bottom for like SSL configuration and link to that. I don't know. I don't need to change any of those settings. Configure the Prefect cluster to connect to each Gitaly node in the cluster. So one thing I did based on last time we spoke all together was talking about this configuration here and trying to explain more of what's going on. And I did this in the Gitaly nodes as well to explain what each thing is doing and what needs to map. All right, let's grab this and start placing some IP addresses. I really dislike the way Zoom, no, give it a URL. Zoom like has this green border around the screen, which always inadvertently like covers something. Basically, I can't tell which mode of Vim I'm in, is my complaint. These complaints are not worthy of the notes, but this does feel easier to set up than Geo, probably because there's not like the whole backwards and forwards flipping between each nodes. It feels quite linear, the setup instructions.
I should hope so. Yeah, there's a lot more components in Geo.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll just leave the token because we're going to use that very secure token. Save the changes and reconfigure. I did notice in the docs, when you view them on docs.gitlab, there's a nice little copy and paste thing next to these blocks. But it means that whenever you've got one of these commands that actually requires you doing a substitution inside of it, you have no opportunity to do the substitution because you paste it and it immediately executes.
Right.
So it did make me wonder, like, if there are things where substitution is needed, and they're going to like actually execute, like they're run in the shell, maybe we should not try and avoid those substitutions where possible to prevent people like executing commands unexpectedly. All right, verify that we can reach. We can ping SQL. All right, job done. Next step.
So when you copy it, it actually inserts a new line at the end. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's just when you go to like this docs interface here and you copy this.
Right.
Like, let me run this one, which is not dial nodes, like the one we just did here. So if I just click copy and then I run here and then just go, I'm just doing Command V. Like notice that execute, I did not press the enter key. So I noticed this in the context of these commands up here where you needed to enter the server address, because I like copied it and then I tried to paste it in and then like backspace over it and like it was already executed. So I mean, it's fine because it's just a failed connection to a server because it's like not an IP address, but it was kind of like, oh, that's weird, like it's executing things for me.
Yeah, at the very least, it should just not put the new line in there, so you have to hit enter.
Yeah, maybe that should be like a change to the actual docs.
Yeah,
thing.
I think so.
Can someone make
You know,
a
it's
note
that
of
little
that?
calculator that just automatically generates the sequence of things for you based on your thing, but still.
Oh, that'd be cool, like a little input form, and you like you put in your tokens and the IP addresses at the top, and it just does it. I don't know how
That
I
was the
feel
idea,
about
but it
putting tokens
might be a little
into a web
insecure
browser.
stuff, copying stuff into your, clipboard and all, but
Yeah. All right. Gitaly nodes. Gitaly nodes. Complete each of these steps on each Gitaly node. We need the Prefect node configured. Done. We need 3 or more servers with GitLab installed to be configured as Gitaly nodes. Do not run other services on these. Every Gitaly server is assigned to the Prefect. Every server assigned to the Prefect needs to be viewed. Configuration is the same as this, except storage names are exposed to Prefect, not GitLab. Secret token shared with GitLab. Prefect. Yeah, so this was the thing I was mentioning before. The configuration of all Gitaly nodes in the Prefect cluster can be identical because we rely on Prefect to route operations correctly. Particular attention should be shown to the auth token, and the storage names in the data DIRs must match the storage names under Prefect virtual storages. This was set in the previous section. All right. All right. Oh, very important. All right, configure Gitaly to listen all network addresses. My plan is to configure this once and then copy and paste it to all the nodes. Gitaly auth token.
So efficient once again.
Configure the GitLab shell. Yeah, okay, this was another thing that I noticed is that we set the GitLab shell token in the configuration, and then we manually set it in the GitLab application server. And that's interesting because that is different to what Geo does. Geo copies the secrets JSON file from the primary to all the other nodes, so they share the same secrets. we should probably be consistent in how we do that, because it's a bit weird that like it might be set in a secrets JSON file and then we're overriding it maybe in the GitLab RB file on the application server, and then we're copying that around even though we could be using the secrets file. So it's just, it seems like we should use the same approach that Geo does. But I don't know if there's a specific reason we did this. I don't know. Maybe this was just like what seemed like the laziest, fastest way to do it.
Yeah, probably, because Geo is trying to copy, a file with, 20 secrets in it. This is one secret, one password. So
if I go to this primary, right, I don't know where the secrets live. Do you know where the location of this is, Stan?
is this the prefect secret, or is this the?
This is the GitLab secrets. There's like a GitLab shell secret somewhere.
I thought that was a file name that gets written out. Like you set it in the config and then it writes it to a file afterwards. So
that might be the case. All right.
So that's probably why these instructions are put in this password, because then Omnibus will generate the files you need from that.
That also makes sense. All right. Right. So I think we need to change the server address. Okay. What else do we need to configure? Configure the storage locations. Yeah, so this is again that thing. These can be identical. So actually, now we're going to copy and paste this.
Just SCP it over.
Well, I'm going to be lazy and just rely on that. All right. Hopefully that's on my clipboard now. CTL configure. Oops. And I'm really fat fingering everything today.
I think this is another reason why we might want to use console, right? To just propagate all the key values to all the Gitaly nodes instead of having to manually configure everything.
Hey, excellent. That perfectly copy and pasted. All right, GitLab, CTL, configure.
Well, even if you use console, you still have to get that information in there somehow, bootstrap it somehow, right?
Yeah, you just have to configure console correctly first, right? Pointed at the right prefect or the right
That sounds
console
easy.
cluster. Just less information that can go wrong.
Okay. Done. Complete these steps for each Gitaly node. After all Gitaly nodes are configured, you can run the Prefect configuration checker to verify Prefect connects to all Gitaly servers. All right. My connection is still stable there. Oh, so I was really confused the first time I saw this because this looks like a lot of error output. But on closer inspection, I think it's saying success 3 times in a row, once for each node. But it's not obvious without like carefully inspecting this. So
Look, it looks like the output changed because you have all these info statements there. That's not related to this, is it?
I don't know.
What is that? Is that?
That's not from the GitLab
No.
CTL command, right? Okay, so
No,
that looks
those
like
are other log
It
statements.
looks like
yeah.
gRPC's logging, right?
okay. That might be a regression because that wasn't in there the last time we demoed. I don't think we had one like weird error message that we had an action item for, but now it looks like there's a ton more things in there. Like it looks like the logging configuration is different than the last time we did this.
Yeah, so I saw this has been a regression then since last Wednesday or Thursday when I did this demo. So it's a change that's probably like from the last between like 1 and 2 weeks ago.
I'll make note of it.
Thanks. All right, but we're making progress. All right, GitLab times. This is nice. I can give myself a bit more real estate. All right. Got to edit this old familiar file. All right. Got to set up the data DIRs. I can just put that at the top, I think. Okay, need the IP address of Prefect. Slash Prefect. Oh yeah, we better set our super secret shell token. We can reconfigure that. What's next? Verify everything's working. Should that be running over the public net?
Oh, I think he's referring to how we're using external IPs, right? Like we were talking
rather
about
than
this
internal.
previously. Yeah.
I could very well be using internal IPs, and I probably should have been using them the whole time.
Yeah, but GCP is doing that magic for us, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Google is kind of magic. All right. The other thing I just realized is I did reconfigure, but then I never set a password. So but this whole instance is waiting for someone to basically claim the admin account on. So it's super secure.
Well, hurry up then.
Yeah, if someone can beat me to it, you can be admin. This GitLab instance is yours. Free to a good home. All right. No. That's too short. All right. Hey. Dun, dun, dun. Now, update the repository storage settings to make the new cluster the default, and then create a project to make sure it works. There it is. Yeah, there's like some caching thing I noticed last time. Like the first time I load this page, it would only show default, and then I'd reload it and Prefect would show up.
Yeah, I think there's like a 1 minute delay. But it should be, actually, no, it should be showing the uncached version there. So I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, it might be the local cache.
Local cache on my machine.
No, I'm just thinking how the application settings work. There is caching on the process and on the database, and it might be loading. Yeah, let's look at that.
Can someone make a note of this? We should flag it in the docs and have an issue about this because it's just a niggle that makes it confusing to an administrator what's going on. All right, so Prefect is going to be the storage location for repositories. And hello, y'all. Hey, that looks promising. I noticed this as well. I don't think this is an issue with Prefect. I think this is an issue with me being lazy and not setting a domain name. And if anything, it's possibly related to changes that the source code team made about like the app, like downloading things asynchronously. So it hits the API and it uses the configured server name for that. So like, I think the fix is to actually change the config here. To have the external URL be the IP address rather than a domain that doesn't exist. Right. All right, we'll see if that fixes things. But yeah, the repository did get created. Where did it? Yeah, it did get created. We can see the initial commit. So just make sure this thing comes back up. Next step. Yeah, I don't know why it's still, there might be some sort of cache. All right, they're not critical to this demo. Congratulations, you have configured a highly available Prefect cluster and made it the default storage for new Git repositories. Okay,
You really made it highly available at this point?
Well, you know, we should put it, maybe we should put an asterisk on that. Oh dear. All right, so what should we do to this thing?
Now, have you checked that it's actually replicated?
No, yeah, I think that's what we should do now. Yes, Kai. So the storage locations is the sharding mechanism. So it's possible today to configure multiple shards. So they wouldn't have any extra availability and it would be round robin between any of the selected storage locations. So if you select both of them, GitLab will just choose randomly which one to select. So GitLab.com has 50 different storage locations, one storage location per shard. And so Prefect shard just look like a normal Gitaly shard. Yeah, let's check if things are being replicated. How do I do that? There's no real debugging instructions for how to me to work this out.
James, if you want to try failover, That's one way to see if it's replicated. So if you bring down a primary and then refresh the page.
Okay, so in the configuration on Prefect, let me just open it. There is a hard-coded primary. Should that be there for automatic failover, or should that not be there anymore?
Well, for now, it's very naive. So on startup, it treats the hard-coded value in the config as a primary, and then like if you bring down a primary, then it'll fail over to one of the other secondaries, and then the config doesn't match what's the application state.
Okay, so if I do GitLab CTL stop here, the primary is down. And if I reload the page, we shouldn't get an error. It should just work. Right. Now that config's propagated, and we can view the file. So something else must have taken over, presumably.
Yeah, so it probably failed over to Gitaly 2. So if you tail those logs, you should see some activity there.
Okay. And I do that by doing GitLab CTL tail or something. I don't know.
Yeah, tail. And well, you probably want to do that on the Gitaly box. Or you can do it on the Prefect box too.
You tell me which is the best place to do it.
Yeah, do it on Gitaly -2.
Okay. And that'll.
You can
because
do
the
tail
read will.
space Gitaly, and it'll just give you the Gitaly logs.
Okay. Controls.
So how do we tell, can we give feedback to the user that request was serviced by Gitaly 2? It could be nice to put it in the performance bar. I mean, like, oh, all these queries actually came from 2 and not 1.
Yeah, that's something we have to do. I think there's an issue for that.
Yeah, is there one about the performance bar specifically? Because that will help mere mortals much more quickly determine what is going on.
Yeah, I'll write a note about that.
Yeah, that'll probably speed up demos because there'll be less messing around in the command line. So I can't see the read request coming through for this. Like if I click on that, would reads
it might
get
be going
logged?
to Gitaly -3. Yeah, it should.
There's 3 of them? Okay. Yeah, I just
We're
noticed.
really going for the high availability gold standard. You can't have quorum with 2 nodes. Like that's dangerous business, Stan.
I don't see anything there, but
Maybe it's on the primary.
it's still running on the primer. It's so highly available, you can't stop it.
Oh my gosh, that would be quite funny. Well, no, that would. Oh, that's shutting down. That seems. All right. How do I?
Are we sure that repository got created on Prefect?
Well, I mean, it was meant to be the default storage. Let me check.
It's a good point. I wonder if it's stale. Maybe it's another
Or maybe I didn't click the save button. Could also be user error.
I'm guessing it's probably. You can actually look at the project and see where it's. Go to the admin projects there, yeah, and click on that thing. It's on default. All right, so we need to fix that. Make it less dependent on time, I guess.
All right.
So you want to bring up 1 again, or is that would it just?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Bring up 1.
I know. GitLab CTL.
That was the Theranos failover demo. Look, it worked. It turned off a node.
Take two. All right.
How long does it take to detect that thing's back up? Right away, or? Well, we'll find out.
That's a good point because it should have failed over. So
Oh, it didn't work.
Wow. What just happened there?
If you go to the left, do you see anything on there? Let's.
These are the law.
I wonder is it able to talk to Prefect? I'm wondering if like it just isn't working.
All right, let's see what happened.
Oh gosh. Okay, so is that just a transient thing, or is it actually?
that looks like it can't talk to Gitaly.
Right, but is it like permanently down, or is it just?
Should I stop and then restart?
Well, just try to
Prefect?
create another project. I want to see if it's stuck in this state or it just recovers. Okay, so it recovered. So maybe what happens when you brought down the first one, it got into a state where it did detect that it was down, and then we can try that later. But
yeah, so it looked like it recovered, which is good. Oh yeah, you can see some very healthy looking checksums. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. I don't know if that's intended. Oh, it's empty. There's nothing in it, even though I said initialize it with a README.
did you on this one?
Yeah. Oh, maybe I didn't click on this
I don't
one.
know if I saw you do it on this one. Maybe on the second one. Your internal API is not.
Maybe that's what's going on.
Oh, is the were the Gitalys configured to reach back to the GitLab server?
I thought I did configure that.
Do that on 3 nodes, right?
Yeah. Oh, this is great. I set the URL. Oh, it's HTTPS. Whoops. Classic rookie error.
Wasn't there an instruction to write to run a check on it? Does it
Doesn't check that evidently.
Check that.
Yeah.
There is a GitLab shell check, but I don't know if that's relevant here.
Can someone make a note that that's an easy mistake to make that will make this whole thing not work? And
Yeah,
we should.
This is what happens when you get 3 nodes. You got to do it 3 times.
Three times the opportunities for a typo. All right, let's start tailing this again. And oh yeah, there it is. Primary's going crazy. Stuff's happening on the secondaries. Nice.
Replicated on both? Oh, all right.
That looks very positive. Oh, we're seeing some checksums that look like actual checksums. I suppose they're like all 0 because there was no actual content in the repo, so there's nothing to checksum. All right. Nice.
Now,
Let's stop one of them. CTL.
stop Gitaly. Oh, everything. Okay.
I mean,
All
it's
right.
just Gitaly running on that one.
All right. So should we see something on the left that says, "Hey, this thing has gone away," or is it just?
In the prefect logs, there should be something that says I switched over, but
Would it only see it if we tried to do some operation?
no, it something pings in the background. It pings prefect pings Gitaly health checks, and then it'll swap over. But actually, I'm not sure if I logged that.
Just me quietly be doing this. All right.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you reload the
Can-
repository and see if it at least comes
Yeah.
up?
John, can you make a note to improve the visibility of the health check logging?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, 503. It's down. Down for the count.
So it's still So it's transit failure. I would hope that this would at least cause the prefect to say, "Hey, this thing is really down." If you hit reload, it doesn't recover still.
No,
Nope.
it's down.
It's stuck. So
Actually, there's a config value I just remembered. Otherwise, failover is not enabled.
I have a feeling you're gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that. As soon as you know, I bet I knew exactly
Just
what that
remembered.
was.
That is too good.
Feature flag.
Bonus feature just for you.
Well, because we definitely don't want it to be turned on prod because it's only worse when there's only one prefect. So that's why we don't have it in the doc. Sorry, it's
Is it in Omnibus already, or is
it's
this?
not. It's not. It's on Omnibus. So
Okay, we can hack the. You can hack the config toml, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to go to the config toml.
So James, quit out this because you're not going to be able to do
Okay.
Omnibus, and then go into /var opt GitLab Gitaly. Oh, prefect. That's right.
Yeah, prefect, right?
Is that
Config.
what is it? Config toml?
Yeah, yeah. And then it's failover. It's a top level config. It's failover _ enabled equals true.
Okay, so just
have to add it.
This is like the cheat codes in video games, right?
Failover underscore what?
Enabled equals true. Yeah.
Restart.
Do we want to everything? Do you want to restart Gitaly 1 on the upper right just to?
Yeah.
Do we?
I mean, hopefully we'll.
We haven't actually done any writes since we took it
true.
down. So
actually not.
Well, okay. So, wait, did it?
yeah,
I guess
it just loaded.
Yeah. It worked, but
read from somewhere. Oh, and we're seeing health checks. Maybe this is why the health check wasn't running when the magic feature's not enabled.
all right.
So look, we're getting the transient failures from probably Gitaly 1. Doesn't actually include the name of the node. Can you make a note of that, John? It's just showing IP addresses, not storage names.
Storage name.
So if we edit this.
Wait, do you want to bring up 1 again just to try the crash? Unless you want to go down to just 2 nodes.
All right. Let's tail this log.
All right. So hopefully that health check quiets down, right?
Yep.
Does it indicate the transition? No, it just goes quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, we can see a health check came through on that.
It'd probably be nice to say, node A is online, but I guess that's.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. And we have no idea which one's the primary, right?
This one is.
Second one, as you can tell just by the
Yeah.
activity, right?
Yeah.
And then
And we can see the replication job to Gitaly 3 and to Gitaly 1, I think.
oh, the checksums look good. Man, looks like replication finished. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say bring down number 2 and see can you still reload and
I'll stop killing everything for you, Stan.
okay, thank you.
Every time I just kill everything, you are concerned. All right. Reload.
Hey, look at that. Incredible.
This is amazing. It's highly available
Amazing.
right
It's
here.
highly available.
When
Okay,
you know
and if
that,
you edit it, I assume it will also work.
yeah.
But then now you're in this. So 3 looks like it got a lot of the activity.
Yeah. And then this one replicated.
And then 2 is still in that state. So if I turn on 2, does it know to resync or what happens?
If you turn on 2, the replication job should retry.
All right.
How long does it sit and wait to retry or just until it's finished?
Actually, no, well, right now it just tries 3 times and
Yeah.
then it puts into a failed state. So by now it probably is irrecoverable.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I stop all the other nodes, we should see time travel backwards on the thing, because hopefully it'll fail back to 2.
So we'll see data loss.
All right. Going back in time. Is it too fast?
Maybe it's, or like maybe it's like number 2 is irrecoverable, so it's just like no go.
It should
What's
still,
I think it took a while for that. Okay, yeah, so it went back in time.
yeah.
This is your eventually consistent system. It never got consistent.
But it's like recovering, like you're killing nodes and like it's finding some state to continue like limping on in. So in the sense of eventual consistency, it's doing what we'd expect.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well, cool.
I don't know if there's anything else we should like. So I guess if we bring them all up again, and then we write, we should see everything
doesn't
come
this
into
break?
sync.
Aren't you breaking things then? Because basically, if you write to number 2, you'll have the wrong history, and then 1 and 3 won't be able to sync. And this is why eventual consistency can be a really bad thing, because you can't reconcile that.
All right, let's watch what happens when we try and make Gitaly do awful things. All right, so I'm going to edit this.
All right, number 2 got it, and then number 1 and 3, I would expect them to just not be able to sync that, right? You should see some failure, I would think.
I think replication just plows through. Isn't that right, John? It just sort of says...
Yeah, well, it does a fetch, so I'm not sure what happens.
Well, a fetch would would fail if if those branches are out of sync, right? Like you're not doing a merge, right?
Yeah, I can't actually see
I didn't actually see an attempt to replicate, but maybe it quietly.
What about over here?
Yeah, there was no replication.
Replication finished.
Okay, storage
Primary Gitaly 2.
Gitaly 1. Oh, so it only did on 1. So maybe if you scroll up on 1.
Yeah, I can only see it happening on.
Did it happen on 1 up above?
Yeah, okay. Oh, there's something.
There's something in there. Fetch internal remote. Oh, I'm curious if you look at that. I looked at that project. What state would it actually be in? Oh, no, there's nothing. It's just.
Yeah, so it does replicate repository. Fetch internal and does replicate repository. Fetch would probably fail, right? Like the fetch.
I would expect it to fail, but it's possible to do kind of a force overwrite, and then it just takes whatever.
So if we shut down Gitaly 2 and then see it fail over, it'll be interesting to see what state it ends up in. CTL. All right.
No,
Okay, it's transient failure. So it should.
It's not going to 3, is it?
Oh, it did. It went to 3.
The 3 never got it, so that's what we expect. We didn't see the replication on 3. So now we got. Well, right now all 3 nodes are in different states, right? Okay.
So I think what's surprising to me is that number 3 never recovered, and like I guess it was marked in some permanently failed state. So even though we did the write, that write never got triggered like a force update. Like I would have expected that it would have been consistent in that every node.
Well, we didn't even see it. We didn't even see it propagate to 3. I think. I don't think the replication even ran on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you stop 3 and let's see what's on 1?
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
And if we were right, I think 1 should just be bites to dust one. I think.
No, I reckon we should put bets on. I reckon the other one is the crying emoji.
So it wasn't able to resync, right? Because now you got, I mean, basically this is the repair problem, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you repair, where do you repair? All 3 nodes have different master timelines.
Yeah. So in theory, what we should be tracking is like if a node becomes inconsistent. So like, so the first, like they're all consistent, right? It is a starting state. If for some reason, like number 3 becomes inconsistent, like it should be that the next write would fail, or we should detect that with the health check or the checksum. And then that one should be marked as like needing recovery, which is like a forced overwrite from the current primary. And because it's in that state, it should be prohibited from being promoted to the primary when we do the failover. I guess this like gets to one of the questions about leader election with console, which is something that's been discussed. Because I think the way console would do it would be simply looking at whole of node, like up, down. And so we wouldn't have that control to sort of like have fine-grained repository level management. And so the risk of these kind of situations is higher where you just have like a whole node go down because console decides it's not accessible, and then just promote some node, which, because it's in a real world scenario, you are likely to have like some repositories on every node which are inconsistent. It's not that there's going to be like a mixture.
That's right. That's why I'm scared eventually consistency, because reconciling these problems is much harder, right? You save complexity on the replication part, but then the reconciliation part is actually really hard, and I would say almost impossible because you've got so many different projects.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a problem. that like we knew was there. I think the question will be, John, I think ZJ spoke to you about investigating the write ref RPC.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think
I'm taking a look at that.
hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have some more insight into what approaches we can take there.
Right. And then we have to, and even in that case, you have to imagine like 2 out of the 3 get the right, but one of them does not. Then you immediately have to say that one's broken, and then, you know, resync it with one of the good ones, right?
Yeah.
But resyncing is tricky because now like we have to know which, like we don't want to resync the entire node if we can help it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really should be at a per repository basis. Like, I don't know, maybe it's possible to lean on console to like take a node out of rotation if it is inaccessible and deal with like removing nodes and taking them in and out. But maybe we need to, like at a repository level, still have some sort of housekeeping to sort of keep track of this. And so there's like 2 levels of housekeeping, because we're always going to need like recovery mechanisms for like when something doesn't reach quorum. And that's I guess kind of what we've got. But the layer we're missing is like that state tracking, where we sort of keep hold of that state around like who is out of quorum.
Right.
Sorry, I got to drop. I'm late to my
All right,
Apple
well,
call. But
cool.
This was very useful. Thanks for joining. Have a good day.
Everyone.
See you guys.